I would like to start with something very personal. It's a great privilege to be at this panel with these two amazing women, and I will be introducing them shortly. The first time I heard about the District 6 Museum, as I was just sharing with Mandy, was in 2004 at a conference organized by the Helsinki Citizens Assembly in Ankara. It was called New Tactics in Human Rights. And it was an amazing conference dedicated to bringing together activists from all over the world who had worked on new ways of looking at human rights and creating new tactics. And I'm pretty sure Hrant Dink was there at that conference. I wasn't able to confirm this, but apparently Donald Perenze from the District 6 Museum had prepared the presentation, and Liz Shevchenko from the Coalition of Sites of Conscience had delivered it. A couple of days before the conference, Hrant Dink wrote in his column in Bir Gün about the significance he attached to this conference, and I will be reading a short section from that later on before we move on to the District 6 Museum. But it's really been that conference and listening to the experience of the District 6 Museum, and especially how it has involved the people who had constituted District 6 in developing a new politics of memory and, in fact, looking into a new present and a new future, that was really very revealing and inspiring for us. And when we lost Hrant Dink a few years later, we started at the foundation to think about the significance of creating precisely sites like that, sites of conscience as they're called in this network, sites where we can engage our histories in new ways. So it's really years of, and now we are here at this site of memory and old school that is now hosting many discussions and creative acts on memory. And the Hrant Dink Foundation has become a member of this international coalition of the sites of conscience. So it's really, we inspire each other, and it's really wonderful to have you all here to continue to be inspired together. So we will start with the amazing Constitutional Hill project. But first I would like to introduce you Lebogang Marishane, who has a long history of amazing struggle and activism beyond this, beyond Constitutional Hill. She's been working there as the strategic assistant since 2012. But she has been a human rights activist for over 15 years. She's passionate, as she writes, she's passionate about the preservation of memory, but also ensuring that it is brought alive. She's a qualified computer developer and communications science graduate, so she deals with communications in many different forms. She apparently championed the ICT, information computer technology movement in South Africa to ensure women and girls are included. She's worked for international organizations such as Civicus, which is the Global Civil Society Alliance. And as I said, she's currently employed as a strategic assistant at Constitutional Hill and has published articles in the Global Civil Society Watch and has published a manual on the use of technology to document voice. She has also been a member of Women's Net, has worked for the Women's Net, dealing with domestic violence and other forms of gender-based violence. And that's one question that I hoped we had time to cover in relation to the previous panel as well. Some of the most exciting contributions to recent memory work has come from people dealing with questions of gender. So I'm really curious to learn how in Lebogang's case of both her personal history and at Constitutional Hill, how gender and memory and difficult histories come together. So it's a privilege to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be part of this panel discussion tonight. I'd like to thank the Rand Denk Foundation for including Constitution Hill to be part of this session, to bring into the fold the South African experience, especially Constitution Hill experience. Through my presentation, I'll take you through what Constitution Hill is, and what brought its existence about. We use the tagline, the history of our future, and I hope I'll be able to unpack that for you, why that's our tagline. This is the quote that I'd like to start with. Nowhere can the story of South Africa's turbulent past and its extraordinary transition to democracy be told as it is at Constitution Hill. And I'm sure you're asking yourselves why. This is Constitution Hill as it stands at the moment. It's right in the middle of 3 suburbs that are in Johannesburg in South Africa. It's a national heritage site that's witnessed over a century of South Africa's history. The site was established in the 1800s, and it functioned as a fort. It was used by the Boer back then as a fort to guard the city. This is during the gold rush in Johannesburg. We had the Boer and the English fighting. So the Boer built several forts around the city. There's one in Johannesburg, and also Pretoria has its own. So it gave them an elevated view of Johannesburg, and they would stand there guarding the mines, but also being able to see the enemy coming. In the 1900s, the site was then converted into a prison. This is where a lot of political prisoners were held. One of the sections of the site used to house white male inmates. Given the history of segregation in South Africa back then, you had different sections holding different racial groups. The white male section was not allowed to house any black male prisoners. But Nelson Mandela was an exception because he was considered very dangerous and that he would influence other prisoners. But also there was fear that he would escape. So he was kept in a hospital in the white male-dominated section. We also have the women's jail, which is, women's stories in prison in South Africa are not told that much, and it's not because women were not active in the struggle against apartheid. They were very much active. They were arrested for things such as brewing beer because they needed to raise their kids, but also walking around without a pass, because as a black person back then, you needed to be holding your pass to identify yourself. The women's jail tells that painful story. And in getting these stories, we involved women that were held in the women's prisons. We are fortunate that a number of them were still alive. We developed tools such as mapping memory. We used digital recorders to record their voices, but also video that could be played in the prisons. But above that, what we also did was, in the old women's jail prison, we installed or housed institutions such as the Commission for Gender Equality, which in the present South Africa is an institution that we call Chapter 9. It's there to promote and protect the rights of women. This is the women's jail outside, and the lady you're seeing there, she's now late. She's a well-known human rights activist, Me Fatima Mir. She was one of the people that were instrumental in telling the story. We were fortunate in that the building that is now called Constitution Hill is an original space, authentic. We did not have to recreate anything except capturing the voices, but also recreating some of the objects. Another section that we have is the awaiting trial block. This is where prisoners were kept while waiting to go to trial. I'm not sure if you would have heard of the Rivonia trialists. Those were the activists that were held back then with the likes of Mandela and just trying to think who else you might know. Yeah, but that caliber of prisoners, they were considered terrorists, so they were held here. These are the two towers as they stand now. It used to be just concrete slabs when the site was discovered in 1994. So in the 1800s, it was 1900s, it was a prison, and then in 1980, it then stopped being a prison. It was deserted when it was discovered in 1992, and I'll tell you how the discovery came to life. The two towers now light at night, and these lights is what we call a symbol of hope. They illuminate the place. So from the suburbs, you can see lights going up, and for us, that's a very powerful symbol of hope. These are the prison cells as they are. And what you see there is called a flocking bed. We had to recreate that. Through the engagements with the ex-prisoners, we discovered that there was an instrument like that where they were punished. So if you're not behaving well and you're considered not following prison rules, you'll be flogged onto that bed. So we had to recreate this object. The prison also boasts tattoos, which tell a very powerful story. So we also left those as part of the exhibition. What you see on the TV screen there is some of the voices that were documented, the video that tells of experiences that the prisoners had there. This is number 4, where male prisoners were kept. Those blanket sculptures symbolize men sleeping, so that's how they would line up. It's originally like that, nothing was altered. It's always been like that. The barrier that you see, there's a line of blankets that you see. On the other side, that's where the gang members slept. So political prisoners and gang members mixed. So there was no separation to say you are a human rights activist, you are a criminal. They were all put together. We've also recreated a space where Gandhi was held, Mahatma Gandhi, collected some of the artifacts. We also had to recreate some of the objects there, and we have a cell that depicts his day at Constitution Hill. This is the site that was discovered in 1994. And it was found very deserted. It's in the middle of a very busy suburb called Hillbrow. That's what we call the African port. It's very populated. So you can imagine with a deserted building like this, what could happen. The reasoning of reopening the space was because the Constitutional Court needed a space to house the court and the justice chambers. And the site was identified as such. The founding principles of restoring the site are that it needed urban regeneration. It's in the middle of those suburbs, and therefore it needed to be regenerated with the suburbs around it. But also to use it as a heritage precinct that houses the Constitutional Court. In terms of bringing the space alive, the principle that it's based on is that it needed to stimulate civic growth through historical perspective. So the idea behind it was that it not only needs to be a museum, but there had to be programs that would then address the history, the painful history of South Africa, of segregation and apartheid. And then they found the routing document or framework would be the Constitution, which was finalized in 1996. This is the Constitutional Court as it stands. It's a very new building on site. The idea around the building of the Constitutional Court was to use the old bricks from the old buildings. So you will see around the side there's also glass. The idea around that was to make it transparent, so that it's also linked to the values of the Constitution. To say our Constitution is about transparency, it's about justice, it's about fairness. As the justices sit in their chambers, they can see people moving outside. That's a reminder to them to say, we are here to serve South Africa as a society and not for our interests. There's the Constitutional Court. The bricks that I use there, like I said, they've taken from the old building, and then they were used to build the Constitutional Court. It was a very intense, engaging process with international architects and sociologists just to get it right. And outside, it's all the 11 official languages, saying Constitutional Court in all those languages, so that it's an inclusive building, and that all South Africans feel that they own it. One of the things that the site does is, on a regular basis, keep memory alive through activities that recognizes the Constitution. In 2010, the flame of democracy was lit on site by the then Deputy President, Kgalema Motlanthe. In keeping the site alive, it was then decided that a program needed to be developed that's rooted in heritage, education, and tourism. It focuses on education programs, public programs, temporary and permanent exhibitions, and also daily tours. Education is central to South Africa's long-term development. It's a core element in eliminating poverty, inequality, and the foundation of an equal society. So all the programs that are designed are rooted in constitutionalism, human rights, and democracy. The educational programs that are done on site are human rights workshops that are conducted for students, especially around the Bill of Rights that's in the Constitution. The annual debating tournament, educational programs based on temporary exhibitions. We normally get people coming on site to use the space for issues such as freedom of expression, anything that could be going on in society that they would like to bring alive. In any other creative form that they want to use, then they use the space. But one of the criteria is that with each and every activity they bring, there has to be dialogue so that we engage and speak about the painful past, because we find that we are avoiding issues of past. We don't want to talk about this apartheid and its impact and what it has done. So we use these activities to go back there, dig deeper, but also, you know, it's a healing process. Public programs such as dialogues, seminars, symposiums are also hosted on issues relating to human rights. But we also link our activities to national days such as Youth Day, Heritage, Women's Day, the World AIDS Day, because also these they find expression in the Constitution. We have managed to design various tours to offer an experience that's engaging. One of the things that we do is we have what you call time travel, wherein we engage visitors on site to reenact what it used to be like coming on site and being processed as a prisoner. But we don't leave it at that because then you're not dealing with the issues. We then also dialogue on these issues, have a debriefing session with them to engage on the experience and the impact and what apartheid had or segregation had created. We find that also people respond better to popular programs. We do things like the walk. This attracts about 6,000 people on site. And I think South Africa also, we're battling with getting locals to come to museums, and it's very difficult. 60% of our visitors are international. 20% is learners, and then, yeah, so it's one thing that we're wanting to instill. And then we find that popular programs do bring people on site. And before each and every engagement, such as this one, that's the walk, we get people to do a mini tour of the site, and then before they engage on these activities. This is the walk that took place this year. It was commemorating 20 years of the South African Constitution. For young people, we bring them on site to interact with the museum, but we also align our activities to the curriculum. So we have a program called the Debating Tournament. So we find that it's not enough for them to come on site and not being able to articulate what the site is trying to do. We engage them in a 3-month activity where they're being trained on public speaking, research, but also the issues of constitutionalism and democracy. This culminates into one big event where they then discuss about issues of constitutionalism, and we have one school which is then declared a winner. It has been going on, I think, for about 6 years now. The principles that the building of Constitution Hill is based on is that we are wanting to promote justice, but also the memory initiative to tell stories of the inmates that were held there. The history of South Africa is such that the democracy was negotiated, as you would know, and in 1996, the Constitution came into effect. Thereafter, there was the processes of the TRC where people were engaging. Beyond that, people don't find space to express voice and engage with one another. And this, we find that helps to unpack issues and engage with one another. Reparations, memorialization is an important aspect of reparations, where we would almost like to say confront truth, but also be open about it in a safe space that symbolizes constitutionalism, equality, symbolizes justice. Then both parties can then face each other and be truthful about the history and hopefully the future of the country. Contribution towards non-recurrence. Through these education initiatives, what we're trying to instill is non-recurrence, knowing your history, but also informing you and engaging you on issues of constitutionalism. We are a young democracy, 22 years. The Constitution is actually turning 21 years next year. So there is a huge need to educate citizens about constitutionalism and issues of ownership around that, to unpack it, because also it's seen as a legal document. So we're trying to make it popular through these activities and also the site itself. Key learnings that we've discovered is that there needs to be long-term sustainability, which is agreed upon and committed at inception, but also they use the space as creatively as possible to speak to various groups. Multifaceted approach helps through museum exhibitions, permanent and temporary education, documentation, archives, but also finding ways to get young people involved and interested, which is normally tricky. But we think with the debating tournament and other activities, we are making ground. Institutional memory is also vital, and documentation, research must be central to the process. This also is important to include those that were held there, because they hold the knowledge, they have voice. But also there is that almost that sense that when you conduct these researches and archives, there's a sense of them being taken away, because they feel that they, in some way, they own their space, so they want to be included in the process. so that they inform and ensure that it's documented truly and it's a reflection of what happened. Access to documents and information also assists with ongoing research and interest in the work of memory projects. I think what we've managed to do is to crack our niche from freedom denied to freedom protected. With the constitutional court being there, it helps to strike that balance. On the other side, you have a side that holds so much pain, whereas on the flip side, you have the constitutional court that stands for justice. Continuous improvement of the site through exhibitions, education, and public programs, but also issues of maintenance, because it's a very old site. I mean, it was built in 1800s, so it needs to continuously, in a very heritage-sensitive manner, be restored. Memorialization is related to transitional justice. As you can imagine with South Africa, as I mentioned earlier on, it was a negotiated process, so we are in that process of transitional justice. The continuous marketing of the site also helps. International partnerships also assist in us profiling the space to the international community, but also getting learnings from other sites and seeing how they do things. Also sharing programs and projects such as exhibitions to revive awareness. We normally, with peer organizations, also exchange traveling exhibitions to tell various stories about atrocities of segregation, silencing voices, issues of sexuality, silencing those minorities. My conclusion would be a small example of the need to align and use our resources to work together to contribute to transitional justice is very important. I think much has been done, but there's still a lot to be done. If you look at the South African perspective, you'll see that in as much as we have these sites of memories that tell these powerful stories, at the moment the environment is very volatile. We have a situation of the Fees Must Fall movement. I don't know whether you've heard of that, but young people are rising in South Africa, demanding access to education. So we're finding ourselves, in as much as we in these sites, we hold memory of what an unjust society does, but how do you then ensure that continued engagements are conducted? Challenges are abound with triple challenges of poverty. It also speaks to the current situation where you have glaring poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And then you are here wanting to facilitate dialogues about the past. It becomes a challenge. We provide an example as a beacon for constitutionalism, human rights, and democracy. So despite what we're going through, we're pushing on to ensure that the democracy that we attained in 1994 is kept and that the history is not repeated. This is the Constitutional Court as it stands. You'll see on the doors there, it's written in Braille. It's to include also the blind. And then as I had mentioned earlier on, the 4 official languages up there to say Constitutional Court. Okay, this, oh, am I gone? Okay, this is the quote from the former President Nelson Mandela about the building of the Constitutional Court. He remarked that it's transforming a notorious icon of repression into its opposite. It now stands firmly as a symbol of hope. And then he said, rising from the ashes of that ghastly era, it will shine forth as a pledge for all time that South Africa will never return to that abyss. And that's what we're hoping for in South Africa. Thank you.